Hey, all of you, good afternoon, good evening, Shantanu, Devangana, Ritul Raj, okay, Prachi, Vedanti. Yeah, good evening, good afternoon to all of you. Hi, Piyush, Kartikeya. ठीक है. So, पहले बताओ कि how has your answer writing been this morning? Did you all write the answers? Devangana, fine. It's a long process, but ठीक है. It will take time. Thanks for asking any case. आप लोग बताओ कैसा रहा आपका राइटिंग आंसर्स? हाय एकता, गुड इवनिंग. How many answers? Most of you said you wrote 7 answers, 8 answers, some of you 5 answers. You have a sense of control, I believe, some amount of control on water issues, on issues linked to land management, something on coastal areas, something on minerals. Free from today, Vikas. You can join from tomorrow. Okay, fine. Welcome. No problem. Hi, Venkatesh. Good evening. Venkatesh, I see you so regularly on the channels. I hope I get to see you sometime also. Hi, Arvind Maurya from Prayagraj. Okay, that's nice. The river issues हम आज discuss करेंगे. Okay. Had exams. Good afternoon. Chalo, theek hai. Today, I think, is one of the special sessions because I think this is something that has been troubling everybody. How to write geography answers, kya approach hona chahiye. By the way, all of you watching me on the YouTube right now, this is a session which is designed for MSP program, main support program, where the students are not only giving tests, they also are writing answers as part of practice. There's a process how you revise, there's a process how you see PYQ questions. We have sessions where toppers come in and they try to enrich the students' understanding and writing skills. So it's part of that, but because एक अच्छा topic है, which I thought कि all of you can benefit, even if you have not enrolled with us, I thought you can spend 1.5 hours with me, benefiting from the process of learning something on how to write geography answers. ठीक है? So welcome all of you. Hi Arvind. Okay. Yeah. अच्छा, पहले बताओ आप लोगों ने questions देख लिया, right? I will show you the questions. Let me know if those questions make sense to you or not. If you can see my screen, all of you. I've shared my screen. Is my screen visible to all of you? Yes? Okay, perfect. That's nice. So here we go. This is your test. There we are. Okay. There we are. So kuch questions dekho, guys who are online. Yesterday, Harshit sir had taken a session and he discussed some of the questions. So questions on Himalayan glaciers melting and what is the impact on water resources, something on community-based water management, something about the peninsular plateau and the physiographic regions as source of minerals, discussing physiography and climate and variations in land utilization. We have something on watershed management as aspect of improving land use efficiency, something on coastal land utilization, relationship between physical landscapes and socioeconomic forces. Okay, so all those who are online, you can take a screenshot of these questions. ये हमारे practice questions हैं. They are not PYQs. Some questions we have framed so that students can practice and do some bit of answer writing. Okay, उस perspective से है, right? So let's start off in that case. Okay. So what is the challenge that I am dealing with, or what challenge you guys are dealing with? Okay. So the one of the biggest challenge. Okay. So MSP program. This is the mains support program, and this program is meant for 2026 mains, and I'm discussing resource geography, something of paper 2. These are human aspects. So a common concern क्या है? Okay, a common concern that we have in this topic is how to write geography answers. Okay, खासकर geography answers in the context of optional. Because if you look at the questions are very generic in nature. Look at your question, देखो आप. You look at this question here. Okay, it says, how will Himalayan glaciers impact water resources of India? ये आपका GS में भी पूछ सकता है. Or a question it's like community-based groundwater management for a sustainable development. This can be asked as a GS answer also. Okay, what is the role of watershed management in improving land use efficiency in semi-arid regions? The use of GIS, remote sensing in improving land use planning. ठीक है, ये बड़े GS type of questions हैं. Okay, look at this question, for example. Mineral resources coincide with ecologically fragile, okay, physiographic zones. Okay, so that is an element of general geography, not the typical optional type of geography. नहीं है ये. Okay, and groundwater is again the backbone of India's food security. ठीक है, ये जो questions हैं, you require something more than straight the facts and figures. तो ये हम challenge deal कर रहे हैं. How to write geography answers. So एक technique ये है, how to bring geography element. The geography element comes in with one is the regions approach. कोई भी question होगा, okay, you can bring a regions approach. Say if they ask you impact of Himalayan glaciers on water, आप region कर लो. Eastern Himalayas, Western Himalayas, water from Himachal Pradesh impact, water from Ladakh ka impact, water from Kashmir ka impact, water from Sikkim ka impact, Tista River, Kosi River, talk about Bhagirathi, Alaknanda. If you have a regions approach, it becomes geography. Okay, if I ask this question to you, think of this one here. Like it says, community-based groundwater management contributes sustainable water use. अब जो community-based है, I can go by regions. Say hill region community. I can talk about agricultural regions community. I can talk about community-based water management in the black cotton soil, keeping the soil and the crops in mind. I can talk about groundwater management, say in parts of coastal areas. तो जहां regions आएगा, आपका आंसर बन जाएगा geography. Because regions का मतलब क्या? Regions means you will have maps. You will talk about specific places. You will talk about local geography. You will relate to certain local tribes. You talk about local land uses. And आप regions में आराम से दे सकते हो case study. How are the Himalayas and glaciers melting can have an impact? If I take up a case study of Sikkim from East Himalayas, the answer is done. ठीक है, so this is one of the approaches. आप हर question में, I mean, you just have to be very aware of this. So if I ask you, access the vulnerability of Indian coast, okay, coastal land utilization systems for climate change. So if I talk about India's coastal land utilization, I can talk about Mumbai coast, I can talk about say Coromandel coast, I can talk about Andhra coast, I can talk about coasts of Sundarbans and mangroves, I can talk about coasts of island regions. Okay, so coastal areas which have aquaculture, coastal areas which have urbanization. This is a regions approach, nothing else. So one way of bringing geography is use regions approach. The second is case study. In fact, these two are very interchangeable. Case study mein, okay, geography is what? Geography is places. Geography is discussing local physiography, discussing local climate, discussing local people. So case study mein wo specific aa hi jata hai. That's why all those enrolled in our program of MSP, you will be given case studies. Okay, 50, 60, 100 case studies milega, and you can use it as much as you want, and you are home. A third aspect of geography writing is use thinkers, use geography theories, geography concepts. You can use lot of content from models and theories. Think of growth center concept, think of Rostov's model. You can talk about the concept of determinism, possibilism, the works of welfare geography, radical geography. आप ला सकते हो. A very nice set of geography theories and thinkers. If you talk about environmentalism, ये भी important, हर जगह आ सकता है. Any management, you can talk about role of perceptions, perception, cognitive approaches to thinking, cognition. You have those maps of gold and the rest. So these are the three important tools how you can bring in geography. Yes, Malthus, absolutely. You have Malthus, you have limits to growth. Okay, you are on. Okay, so ये एक तरीका होता है. Now the challenge is, while these two are फिर भी manageable, this is not manageable for most of you. So today's class, okay, I'll discuss some examples of this, and I'll give you some content also. Okay, and see, the reason is, most of us do not do thinkers with that kind of understanding. हमने superficially पढ़ लिया है या फिर हमने बस notes से याद कर लिया है. We don't have that depth of thinkers, and most of us, when we write a geographical thought, we cannot go beyond determinism and possibilism. आप फंस जाते हैं. कुछ भी आंसर बता, determinism या possibilism. Yes, वही problem है विकास. आपको कुछ आगे नाम ही याद नहीं आ रहा है. But geographical thought is also Griffith Taylor. Geography thought is also a welfare geography of D.M. Smith. Geographical thought includes regions approach. Geographical thought is geosophy. Geographical thought includes quantitative analysis and systems approach, location theory. Okay, खूब सारे concepts हैं. Okay, whole idea of cultural landscape is geographical concept. और ये non-geography बंदा लिख ही नहीं सकता. So एक suggestion ये है कि आप please इसको listing करो. All the development theories, they also can become part of your geographical theories. So make a good list. Okay, I'll see once I've done geographical thought, next after sectional test hoga, I'll help you. Yes, exactly. Revenstein's theory in migration, crowding, shortage of homes, how the migration happens towards urban areas. Okay, go on. Okay, so I'm helping you in that context. Okay, so I'm looking at एक important theme. Yes, Piyush, you have no escape from that. So one important theme of discussion is water theme. आप assured रहो, water से कुछ ना कुछ question आएगा ही आएगा. Water irrigation form में आ सकता है, water drinking water आ जाएगा, water floods and droughts aa jayega, water urban crisis aa jayega. Very big problem today has been the shortages of water urban areas. Water is also sea level rise, okay, water linked to monsoon rainfalls, okay, water is part of agricultural productivity. A very important theme of water is also groundwater management issues. So I'm discussing how to write geography answers from the perspective of water. All game, all of you? All game? All ready here? Okay. So please, while I'm teaching, I want कि आप notes भी बनाओ. Okay, online, whether you are on the dashboard or you are on the YouTube channel, whatever, please make sure that you are making some notes. Okay, so how to make, okay, water theme based questions and discussions relevant to geography answers, geography optional answers. How to make water theme के questions अगर आते हैं, and see some of the principles that we will discuss, आप इसको बाकी में भी use कर सकते हो. If you understand the water theme, okay, just a minute, my laptop will conk off. I need to charge my laptop. Okay, पूरे वर्ल्ड में एनर्जी क्राइसिस है और मेरे लैपटॉप में भी एनर्जी क्राइसिस है. Okay, so the problem of energy crisis managed. Yeah. Okay. Peak load factor. Okay. ठीक है. Good, nice. Let's start off. ठीक है. So one is, okay, you please keep writing. Water is a resource. Okay, when I say it is a resource, one aspect of the resource है, it is the economic resource. आप ये notes ले लो, कैसे use करना है बाद में आएगा. Okay, water is a resource and water is an economic resource. When I talk in terms of economic resource, हम बात करते हैं there is scarcity. हम बात करते हैं there are problems of overuse. There are problems of misuse. There are problems of pollution. Okay, water is a very important input in production systems. So water as irrigation, water as processing industries में, water as resource is also HEP. Okay, so this is water as an economic resource. Okay, this typically is water as one of the factors of economic production. Water as an input. ये एक discussion हो गया. Okay. Now, when you bring a bit of geographical depth, we say that water issue, okay, is also a political issue. It's about ownership. It's about rights. It's about access. Okay. Water issue is also about what we call as spatial justice. Spatial justice is not just about land. Like it's not only about land. It is not only about ownership of agricultural plots. Spatial justice is also the rights in terms of local resources. Use of forest, okay, by the local tribes is spatial justice. Use of water by local population is also, okay, spatial justice. Use of local area biodiversity, okay, जो आपका CBD का है, local populations, yes, so ये term use करो. use the word that water is part of spatial justice. Yes, there is an angle of equity. Now, equity के बहुत सारे aspects हो सकते हैं, but हम बात कर रहे हैं equity in terms of spatial justice. ठीक है? And water, if I am looking at water, see, if I look at water management from this aspect, okay, I'm looking at conservation. I'm looking at reducing waste. I'm looking at reducing pollution. I'm looking at storage. But when I look at water in terms of a political aspect, water as a part of rights, okay, spatial justice, यहाँ पर हम use करते हैं the concept of water governance. तो ये insights आपके लिए is a part of okay water governance के issues बन जाते हैं. Okay, it's about it's about ownership rights. It's about access rights. It's about a priority to local economic systems. It's something that we have like your land reforms. Okay, so water justice is something like land reforms. Okay, Vikas, अभी कोई input मत दो, चुपचाप लिख लो notes. I'll come to what I'm telling. Yes, you're right. The water dispute between states is a part of spatial justice. ठीक है, अभी बस notes लिखो. Okay, so ये dimension समझ में आ रहा. So I'm moving from okay water as economic system. I'm moving towards, let us look at water from the political system. Okay, so this approach को हम बोलते हैं कि we are looking at water issues from the perspective of structural critique. I'm looking at water issues from the perspective of structural critique. Now, what do you mean by the word structural? It basically means something about how society is organized. Okay, structural का मतलब होता है I'm looking at from the perspective of inequalities. I'm looking at from the perspective of okay injustice. So water issues को हम देख रहे हैं from the perspective of structural critique and not water simply as an economic resource. Economic resource में आपने water conserve तो कर दिया, but then आपने water use rights किसको दिया? आपने waste करना बंद कर दिया, but waste करके जो water बचा, वो water use कौन कर रहा है? आपने pollution तो रोक दिया, but pollution रोकने के लिए आपने कौन से लोगों को displace कर दिया? ये भी तो issue है. Okay. So conservation, waste, pollution, storage. Okay, this has to move towards understanding the structural critique. Are you all writing down the notes as I'm discussing? Ab likh pa rahe all of you? You're looking at water from the perspective of inequalities, from the perspective of society, the way it's organized. Okay. Yes, very right, very beautiful. This discussion is nothing but I'm looking at water from the perspective of radical geography. मुझे यही चाहिए था idea. Look at water from welfare perspective. Okay, look at water from Marxist perspective. Look at water from inequalities perspective. Look at water from conflicts perspective. We call this as water management in the context of structural critique. Water management in the context of spatial justice. ये important है, ना कि water in terms of economic resource. I hope this part is clear, all of you. One dimension of how you bring geography. Okay. Now, आप कुछ sentences लिखो, all of you. आप कुछ sentence लिखो. This is very interesting things. So, water. So some interesting insights. Okay, around or about water resource, their use and their management. Okay, interesting insights about water use and water management. Okay. The first point is okay, that water is not just a flow system in the physical sense. Water is not just a flow system in the physical sense. In the physical sense. So what I'm talking about is water is not a part of, is not a part of a hydrological system alone. Okay. Water is not just a flow system in the physical sense. Physical sense मतलब क्या होता है? Okay, water as a commodity. This is water as a commodity, water as an object. I'm saying water is not just a hydrological system alone. Okay. Water is a part of, what is a part of socio-natural flow. The part of socio-natural flow. Okay. Water is part of, okay, power. Water is part of politics. Water is part of how capital and how investments flow. Okay. So water has embedded okay, development elements. Water is a socio-natural flow. Water is part of power game. Water is part of politics. Water is how capital and investments flow. Okay, iska classic example hoga, look at how the irrigation systems are organized. All the communities all the villages ho gaya. If you look at all the states which have managed to control the water, they are more progressed. So green revolution yahi to kya hai? If you look at green revolution, the development of Punjab, of Haryana, the development of Western UP, the development in parts of the commercialization crop, ये तो क्या इन्होंने water के में embed हो गया the development elements, and those who could not hold on to water, where water is still a natural flow system, where water is not controlled, not harnessed, those areas are the laggard regions. So we have clear distinction. ये system जो दिखाई देता है कहाँ पर? The irrigated areas versus the rain-fed areas. Rain-fed areas में water control is missing. Okay, water flows, water runs off. So water is not the investment. ठीक है, और ये पॉलिटिक्स आपको दिखाई देता है also in the upper riparian states. You see this in urban areas. You see this in industrial regions. You see this in water privatization. Okay, so when we look at water management, I'm saying look at water management where the water is treated as a social natural flow. Water is treated as a part of power control, power ownership. Water is a part of politics. Water is how capital and investments move. और ये तो आपको दिखाई देता है in the dichotomy of the irrigated areas versus rain-fed areas, the upper riparian states versus the lower riparian states, the urban areas versus the rural areas, the industrial regions versus the rural agricultural regions, the privatization objective versus water as a public good. That's one dimension. So water is not just any physical flow system. It's not just any physical flow system. Okay. So यहाँ से concept आ रहा है. There is a theory. Okay. That's given by Eric Signedow. Okay. Eric, you can quote this thinker. Eric SWYN. Okay. YNDOUW. SWYNGEDOUW. Okay. According to Eric Signedow, okay, water scarcity is not a resource problem. Is not a resource problem. It is more of a political and more of an economic system that is exploitative. That is exploitative. The problem is more about ownership. The problem is more about access. Water scarcity is not a resource problem. So when I say resource problem, I fundamentally mean there is scarcity. They fundamentally mean that something will get exhausted. It basically means something is less. वो कम हो जाएगा. We are seeing water more of a political economic system का problem है that is exploitative. Where the problem is of ownership and access, not scarcity in general. Okay, so this idea is something like your radical approach. An approach that was advocated by, remember, David Harvey. An approach that was made popular, okay, by folk. Okay. So water is this is the structuralist approach. To resource problems. Are you all noting down as I speak? Water scarcity is not a resource problem. It is a political, social, economic system which is exploitative. The problems are around ownership and access. Okay, this is the radical approach in water management. David Harvey's perspective, folks' perspective. It is a structuralist approach to resource problem. Okay, so in water management, in water management, the need to shift from viewing water as a physical, hydrological cycle to political, hydrosocial cycle management. The need to shift water from the perspective of water as a part of physical hydrological cycle to water as a part of political hydrosocial cycle management. Can you give an example where this is done? The water is not simply a thing that is flowing in nature. It's part of a hydrosocial cycle management. Can you give me examples? कि कहाँ पर use हो रहा है? Anybody can tell me? कि कहाँ पर use हो रहा है? This is the approach of anybody? Watershed management. This is the approach of community-based water management. यही approach है. It talks about reviving local and traditional practices. क्या आप वाटर को सोशल हाइड्रोलॉजिकल एंगल से देख रहे हो? वाटरशेड मैनेजमेंट, ठीक है? Did you all get understanding, all of you? तो ये एक डायमेंशन है. एरिक सिग्नेडोल्स concept of water scarcity is not a resource problem. Water scarcity is a political economic system that is exploitative. Okay. This Eric Signal's views are radicalist views. Water conservation schemes, Priyanshu पे गड़बड़ हो रहा है. आप conservation scheme से बाहर आओ, आप watershed management की बात करो. Okay. Talk about all efforts where communities are involved and you are reviving the local and the traditional practices. ठीक है? Riparian, buffer, rejuvenation. Okay. Yes, water panchayat. That's nice. Pani panchayat. Pani panchayat concept इसी idea में. Okay, that's one point. The second point. Okay. Now this is a view of another scholar called Karen Baker. Karen Baker's idea is that water is not an economic good. It is not an economic good. When I say economic good, it becomes any commodity. It becomes any, okay, commodities. Okay. Water is a public good. Okay. When I say economic good, I'm talking about profits. I'm talking about ownership. Okay. When I say public good, I'm talking about sustenance. I'm talking about water rights. I'm talking about equity. Okay. So, ये जो approach को you also called as rights-based approach. So, water management from the perspective of rights-based approach. This is the human rights approach. जो आप drinking water में लगा लो, जो आप local rights में लगा लो. You talk about local agriculture के बारे में, local fishing के बारे में. This is the ideas of Karen Baker. That water is a public good. Okay. Water is not an economic good to be owned privately for profits. It's not an investment for furthering production systems alone. It is about sustenance. It is about survival. It is about existential. It is about existential sustenance. Excellent, Vikas. Beautiful. यही approach है, okay, welfare approach. Remember the idea who gets what, where, and how? याद आ रहा है? Who gets what, where, and how? So water is the basis of poverty, inequalities, basis of exploitation, basis of health issues. यही welfare approach भी है. Karen Baker's, okay, water as a component of welfare approach. ठीक है? अच्छा, ये एक second I hope you all keep pace. Okay, I'm moving a bit fast here. The third one. Okay. Water problem. ये phrase याद रखना. That water problem is a problem of production of space. Water problem is a problem of production of space. Okay. This idea basically means, okay, anything, okay, where a resource is used for capitalist production, it is used for profits, it is used for generating, say, production surplus. Okay, and this results in, okay, exploitation of the locals. There is wage exploitation. Okay, तो ये जो term है, what does production of space mean? That any location, any place, any space, okay, is now seen as a resource for capitalist model, for profits, for generating production surplus that results in exploitation of locals, wage exploitation. It can lead to any type of resource alienation. Okay, it leads to loss of ownership of the local problem, local population. Yeah, it leads to displacement of the locals. इसको बोलते हैं production of space. और ये जो idea है, this word and the idea, जो idea है, this was used by David Harvey, the foremost radical geography, that one of the most famous radical geographers that we know of, but the most famous radical geographer that we know of. The concept of production of space. ठीक है, all good. Now see, मैं बता रहा हूं water के लिए, but you can use it for any resource. आप forest में लगा लो, आप land पे लगा लो. You can use it for mineral resources for that matter. You can use it for, say, local biodiversity, whatever you want. I'm giving the concepts. I've given 3-4 names: Karen Baker, okay, Eric Snigdow, David Harvey, welfare geographers, radicalists. Okay, we'll give you some more concepts also. तो ये terms याद रखना. Water is, यहाँ पर water लिखा है as a commodity नहीं है. आप forest बोल लो. Forest is not a commodity. Okay, forest is not an economic input. Okay, forests are physio-social systems. तो ये आप कहीं भी लगा सकते हो. This is a kind of a mantra you can use for any resource geography discussions. And do you know where this will go towards? This ultimately will go towards, okay, environmentalism. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll move towards that, Pawan. The centricity and decentralization. The moment I say local population, I'm talking about local ownership. Okay, you're talking about the rights of the local people means something around decentralization. And production systems are always centralized. Okay, you've got one strong man, one strong industry, one strong sector. Okay, some powerful government owning it. The debate hai between Okay, the centralization of authority, decision making, and the philosophy of decentralization. Is it okay? Water as growth magnets. I hope आप इससे terms उठा रहे हो. अच्छा, now one more very important concept I've discussed. ये वाला हो गया. अब एक और concept लेके चलते हैं. इसको आप बहुत जगह यूज कर सकते हो. Okay, the concept of a tragedy of commons. ये term सुना आपने? The concept of tragedy of commons. This was a concept which was given by Garrett Hardin. And do you know what it means? What does it mean? Anybody knows the meaning of tragedy of commons? अगर मैं short में बोलूं क्या है? Nobody knows. This was a paper published in 1968. Okay. So, okay, listen to this. A very basic human overuse. Yeah, Priyanshu, somewhere there. It basically says if individuals, okay, they are given, if are given unrestricted access and they're allowed, okay, to use the resource, okay, which otherwise is a public good, okay, and use it for self-interest, use it for profits, okay, it will lead to destruction and collapse of resource for everyone. दोबारा लिखो इसको. If individuals, I'm in a very layman term, if individuals are given unrestricted access and allowed use of resource which otherwise is a public good, which otherwise is a public resource, the public good or public resource जो है इसको हम बोलते हैं commons, and they use it for self-interest, they use it for profits, it will lead to destruction and the collapse of the resource for everyone. इस सबको बर्बाद कर देगा. So this idea comes from, okay, the collapse of the traditional village economy and use of common grazing land. ये वहां से आ रहा है. The common grazing land was considered as commons. Okay, so there was an area which is a common area. Villages are there. There are farmers. There are people who are using the common area. Okay, they're using the common resource, but they are regulating it. They are self-regulating. They are managing it as a part of community resource. They're managing it as community ownership. Okay, so person A can graze on 5 days, person B can grow on 3 days. If they graze, this is the type of maybe something else they must give. Okay, these 5 must get together and share the land and not fight among themselves. Okay, तो ये जो होता है where the commons is owned by community, where the commons are managed by a regulation by the community. This economy will survive, will grow. पर जहां भी आपने किसी एक बंदे को or some person here who gets unrestricted rights कि जाओ जैसे खेती करना है करो, जाओ जैसे फार्मिंग करना है करो, जैसे आपको ग्रेजिंग करना है करो. And maybe this man is a powerful man. He's a politician, he's a investor, he's a very smart man. So what he will do is to maximize his profits, ये यहां पर एक घेर लगा देगा. He'll fence it. भाई ये लैंड तो मेरा है. He'll fight it out, use his muscle power. He will use some policies. He'll make some laws, and he'll say, "This is mine." This guy is a powerful man. He will fence his own land. ये land मेरा हो गया. Okay. Somebody else becomes more powerful. वो गुंडामी किया, कोई law बनाया and said, "भाई ये land तो मेरा हो गया." So when some individuals are given unrestricted rights to go and use the public land, and they use the public land more from the perspective of self-interest, self-profits, तो क्या होगा? Okay, this man will overuse the land. This man overuses the land more than the land can probably support. A lot of people are left out. They become poor. Okay, they no longer have economies here. ये गांव छोड़ के जाना पड़ेगा. Slowly, gradually, ये पूरा land जो है ये collapse कर जाएगा. This is what's called as the tragedy of the commons. So this tragedy, okay, where there was something called as common land, which has now been fenced, which has now been controlled by a few people who have been opportunistic. This has been owned by some people by managing some laws or regulations. This will lead to the collapse of village economy, collapse of the ecosystem itself, collapse of the entire local resource also. So this greed will lead to the commons getting destroyed. Can you see this happening for land? Think of what the developers are doing. Is this happening for forest? Think of what some of the mining companies are doing. Is it happening for water bodies? Think of how we are using groundwater. Is it happening for, say biodiversity? Think of how we are exploiting biodiversity, hunting, poaching, and all of that. Okay? So collapse of the commons is a very powerful way of writing about the collapse of public resources, the collapse of public commons. So water be a type of commons. So if you look at what are the examples of commons. So if I go back again, I hope ये समझ में आ रहा है. If individuals are given unrestricted access and allowed use of resource which otherwise is a public goods and use it for self-interest, it will lead to the destruction and collapse of the entire resource for everyone. Okay. So this is the collapse of traditional life, collapse of village, and the collapse of common grazing grounds. तो यहाँ पर जो commons हैं, okay, I can use the commons as grazing land, commons as forests, commons as oceans, commons as space, commons as biodiversity. Again, in general, the ecosystem is also one type of commons. Our earth is also a commons. So ये concept of Garrett Hardin, this is the man. Okay, where is it? The man who gave the concept was Garrett Hardin. So जब भी आप water use for or any discussion where you want to bring in community participation, where you want to bring in, okay, joint ownership. You want to bring in local rights and decentralization. आप यहाँ पर you can use tragedy of the commons as an important concept. जहां पे आप लेके आना चाहो, community participation, local rights, decentralization, pani panchayat, you have got joint forest management, वहां लाना चाहो. You can talk in the context of pani panchayat, जो भी है आपका. Okay. In fact, the whole concept of CBD, okay, the Convention on Biodiversity, okay, the Nagoya Protocol, all of them aim to reverse the inevitability of tragedy of the commons. Make sense, all of you? Okay, so this idea say we have, okay, one idea that says water management is an important aspect in commons governance. The tragedy of the common was a general concept that was given by Garrett Hardin. A Garrett Hardin concept को लेकर बताया कि water management also requires commons governance, and this idea was given by Elinor Ostrom. Water management as a part of commons governance. Okay, radical geography, welfare geography, the concept of water as, okay, hydrosocial cycles, water as part of commons governance. And I repeat, okay, you can also use this concept in the context of forests, land, rivers, oceans, biodiverse, कहीं भी use कर सकते हो आप ये concepts. The wisdom of bringing geographical thought into resource management. Looks good, all of you? Yes, absolutely. इसको आप ethics में ले जाओ. Very nice, Priyanshu. That's why I said, it's a very important class. You get to appreciate how, you can bring in geography, geographical thought, a bit of philosophy to your geographical writing also. Achha, now, I'm moving on. Okay. Then, if I talk in terms of hazard management, floods, droughts, okay. We talk about problems of GLOF, sea level rise, talk about hazards linked to cloud bursts. Okay, any hazard, but I'm discussing water, so I am a bit more specific here. Okay, so यहाँ पर one person you can use is Gilbert White. Gilbert White was one of the contributors in the development of behavioral geography. कुछ याद आ रहा है आपको Gilbert White? I remember having talked about Gilbert White. The contributions to to behavioral geography was Julian Wolpert, Gilbert White, Gold, Pred. कुछ names हैं who are the contributors development of behavioral geography. Gilbert White talked about hazards, more in terms of perceptions. Hazards are about perceptions. Hazards are related to our environmental images. So hazards जो हैं, they are less of a physical problem. Okay. Hazards are more of how we perceive a situation and respond. Okay. So floods, the physical problem का मतलब क्या है? Floods है because there are more people. Floods are because, sorry, there's more water. A flood is because water has entered in land. It's a physical problem. But when I say no, it's more about how we perceive it. Okay, if I perceive the river basin as an area of land occupation, and I live there, I will be hit by floods. Okay, if I perceive water as encroaching into my land, I'll try to block the water. If I perceive that I can't fight the water, I must move away from water. Okay, I will go for evacuation. So Gilbert White's idea that hazards are more about perceptions, more about environmental images, how we process a situation. Okay. In fact, he made a very famous statement. He said, floods are an act of God. ये आप quote unquote कर सकते हो. But flood damages are an act of man. A very famous quote of Gilbert White. Floods are the act of God. You can't stop the rivers. You cannot stop rainfall. You cannot stop, cloud bursts. Act of God as in is a physical thing to it. But the flood damages are the act of man. So इस idea से जो idea निकल के आ रहा है that he values okay ecological options in hazard management. He values non-structural. He values adaptation strategies more. So flood problems को आप physical problem ना देखें, flood problem को आप देखें as a consequence of how we have responded to an issue. So Gilbert White is a critique of structural interventions. A critique of structural interventions. Okay. So this is the ecocentric approach. Ecocentric approach. This approach is against the technocentric approach. और ये idea of Gilbert White आप कहीं भी चिपका दो. Any problem, earthquake, GLOF, sea level rise, जहां लगाना लगा सकते हो आप. Gilbert White's ideas, okay. Critique of structural intervention against dams, retention walls, okay, walls to protect from storm surge, tsunami walls. He talks about ecocentric approach. It's against technocentric approach. ये एक और thinker हो गया. Okay, and another thinker. Yeah, all kept pace with me. Am I adding to your content understanding? Yes. I hope all of you can appreciate what I'm doing here. कुछ rich बन रहा है? Yeah, Devangana, interesting. Oh, that's nice. I'm happy you guys are seeing the value in what I'm discussing. There's more to this. So we have one more concept. Is the Indian geographer, or a planner rather, B.B. Vora. B.B. Vora, he said, water issues cannot be decoupled from land use, forestry, and from economic production systems. Water issues cannot be decoupled. You cannot remove. You cannot remove water issues from land use practices, from forestry practices, and economic production systems. This is an example of systems approach. That water issues are all interlinked. Water issues are all interlinked. He gave a very famous diagram. He says, you cannot separate water from power pricing and from agricultural practices. These three things are linked to one another. अगर आपको वाटर में चेंजेस चाहिए, आपको एग्रीकल्चर में भी चेंज करना पड़ेगा. पावर और एग्रीकल्चर प्रैक्टिसेस प्लस एग्रीकल्चरल subsidies, power pricing, power technology, energy politics. सब लिंक है. The water management from the perspective of systems approach. So you know these terms, but कैसे use करना है वो challenge हो जाता है, right? The use is the challenge, and I'm trying to address that. Tell me, anything else you want me to clarify, explain? Online guy is very quiet. Kaustav, Kunal, Venkatesh, Narsimha Murthy, One Piece. क्या लिखा सर? क्लासेस रोज होंगी या फिर डेमो क्लास है? ये ना तो रोज होंगी और ना ही डेमो क्लास है. इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कंसेप्ट. ऐसे बहुत सारी क्लासेस होंगी. मैं एक दिखा रहा हूं ताकि आप समझ पाओ कैसे पढ़ाई होता है. Ultimately, of course, I want all of you to enroll in our systems and practices and learn something you can from me. Venkatesh. Okay, I'm moving on. Another concept I'm discussing. Yes, Vikas. This should give you solid base. I'll have more of sessions of this kind. But मैं चाह रहा था नहीं, देखो आपने कल सारा मॉडल आंसर देखा, आपने कुछ लिखा, okay, but आप realize करोगे कि many of the answers are still straight answers. Okay, they are not as rich in terms of geographical concepts, right? Again, most students write like that. So मैंने कहा ठीक है इसको लिखो. But once you have written the answer, once you have studied the answer, फिर आपका बहुत अलग होगा approach. Okay. And now you have a different approach to how to use water, radical geography, structuralism, bring in the tragedy of commons, welfare geography आ रहा है, अभी और भी आएगा, ये इकोसेंट्रिक अप्रोच आ जाएगा. And the principles you can use across, okay, topics of resource management, across topics of disaster management, water, agriculture, forest, land, सब use कर सकते हो in some way or other. Okay, let's move on. एक नया पेज ले लो, फ्रेश पेज ले लो. Geographical concepts in any community-based intervention and local decentralized approach in management. What are the geographical concepts in any community-based intervention and in local decentralized approaches in management? आप इसको use कर सकते हो as a part of multi-level planning. You can use this as a part of watershed management. You can use this in Panchayati Raj institutions, Pani Panchayat, land cooperative movement उसमें कर सकते हो, forest rights में use कर सकते हो, minerals, whatever you want. A very important community-based approach in management is also, if you know about district mineral foundation. The local population have rights, okay, for development because of mining, because of extraction economies. ठीक है, तो इसमें करना क्या है आपको? Okay. You take up any resource. I'm giving you a kind of a format, okay? You take up any resource. ये water ले लो, more specifically ground water ले लो, ये forest उठा लो, you can talk about land, you can talk about biodiversity, anything, resource. आपको argue क्या करना है? That this resort or this resource is not a private asset. The only thing जो private asset है is something that you have made. Your house is a private asset, but not your land. You make a shop, the shop is a private asset. You buy a car, the car is a private asset. But the resource की बात कर रहे हैं, पहला point of argument ये रखो कि the resource is not any private asset. A resource is a shared resource. A shared resource आते ही you bring in the concept of tragedy of commons. कि अगर shared resource को हम common अगर नहीं करेंगे management, it will lead to tragedy of commons. Garrett Hardin's approach. Okay. You argue that the resource and the society are inseparable. Okay. You cannot remove society from resource. या ये society resource society कौन सा है? ये local populations, and the tribes, the forest dwellers, the small farmers, the local fishermen. You cannot separate resource and society. Think of the discussions around wetland management, Ramsar Convention, the concept of wise use. पूरा sustainable development इसी एंगल पे है कि कोई भी रिसोर्स को आप प्राइवेट एसेट ना देखो, हर रिसोर्स को आप शेयर्ड रिसोर्स देखो, और रिसोर्स को आप सोसाइटी से अलग नहीं कर सकते हो. They're inseparable. Okay, and this problem is critical because resource जो है Resource is not ubiquitous. It is not ubiquitous. Resources have spatial heterogeneity. कि रिसोर्स में स्पेशल इनइक्वालिटीज हैं. ओके, सो अगर इमेजिन दिस, अगर रिसोर्स हर जगह मिल रहा होता और रिसोर्स की कमी नहीं होती, फिर तो कोई दिक्कत ही नहीं है, जिसको जो यूज करना है करो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. हमारा प्रॉब्लम ये है कि रिसोर्स कभी हर जगह होता नहीं है. रिसोर्स इज नॉट यूबिक्विटस एंड रिसोर्सेज हैव स्पेशल हेट्रोजेनिटी. रिसोर्सेज में ओके there is spatial inequality. तो that is why okay, कोई भी रिसोर्स को you have to manage. So this necessitates that resources have to be managed. अब जब मैनेज करोगे रिसोर्सेस को, you can't forget this. So if you combine these two things, combine this and combine this, combine these two ideas, okay, so what we get is okay, we need to have decentralization in management. We need hyper local solutions. Okay. We need adaptations with traditional practices. Please note down these points. इसको आप schematic form में लिख सकते हो examination also. Resource is not ubiquitous. Resource has spatial inequalities. There is spatial heterogeneity. There is spatial inequality, which means there is unevenness in availability and access. And resource को आपको shared ही उठाना पड़ेगा. Okay. तो ये जो approach है, this approach that I have talked about here, इस approach का advantage क्या है? The advantage of this approach is that it is communitarianism. It is communitarianism. का मतलब है it is community based. Community based. Okay. This is about collective survival of a village. It is about the social harmony. This averts tragedy of commons. Communitarianism, an approach that is community based, an approach that is collective survival of a village. It ensures social harmony. It averts tragedy of the commons. The advantage of this is also ecofeminism. ऐसे approach में, because you're bringing in society, the local population, okay, the women rights is embedded. is embedded. Okay, so conservation and management is not a technological solution. Okay. Ecofeminism, this is at the core of conservation, local conservation practices. The best example of this is, if you look at okay, the eco-sensitive areas. If you look at community forests, usme women issues are included. They are at the core of local conservation practices. Examples are eco-sensitive areas may conservation, in the concept of community forest, in the concept of Pani Panchayat, the rights of drinking water taken care of. Okay, तो वहां पर आपका women rights ensured. And the advantage of this is also intergenerational equity. It also includes intergenerational equity. And this is, okay, the eco-centric approach. This is a radical environmentalism. This is conquest of nature versus guardian of nature. A debate in which the guardian of nature is the priority. आप इस रिसोर्स को डाल लो एज ग्राउंड वाटर, ये रिसोर्स को डाल लो एज वाटरशेड मैनेजमेंट प्रिंसिपल्स, रिसोर्स में डाल लो फॉरेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, जो भी डालना है डाल लो, आप ये फिट हो जाएगा आपका. एंड यू कैन टेक अप एनी केस स्टडी. केस स्टडी में आई थिंक यू कैन टेक अप द ट्राइबल एजिटेशंस इन सिजीमाली, in Nyamgiri Hills, ठीक है, the tribal movements around the rights of local population, जो भी है, mangroves, yes, absolutely. आप इसमें डाल सकते हो the concept of sacred groves, otherwise called as Bani, in parts of Haryana, Rajasthan. I had some more of discussions, but wow, we have gone to 1.5 hours. ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, सब में डाल सकते हो. एनर्जी रिसोर्स तो मुश्किल है, बिकॉज एनर्जी रिसोर्स में लोकल पार्टिसिपेशन बिकम्स अ बिट ट्रिकी. ओके, लोकल पार्टिसिपेशन क्या करेगा इन केस ऑफ ऑयल एक्सट्रैक्शन और पेट्रोलियम, ओके, तो इट बिकम्स डिफिकल्ट. और यूरेनियम, न्यूक्लियर में क्या करेगा लोकल पार्टिसिपेशन. ओके, सो द मोर ट्रेडिशनल वंस, वाटर, फॉरेस्ट, ओके, हम उसकी बात कर रहे हैं. Did you write down these points, all of you? अब आप ये थोड़ा questions देखो and tell me if the questions make sense. Okay. How can community-based groundwater management contribute to a sustainable water resource in India? Examine the role of watershed management in improving land use efficiency in semi regions. Land utilization reflects interaction between physical landscape and socio-economic forces. Okay. Something on groundwater. Groundwater is emerged as a backbone of India's food security. What are the opportunities, challenges in utilization? तो 5-6 क्वेश्चन में ऐड कर लिया ना आपने, और आप ये फॉरेस्ट में भी कर लो, वाटर वाला है, go for forest also. Yeah, all of you. Chalo, I won't bother you more, although I still had some more discussion. It'll take me a bit more. I'll have one more session. हम करा देंगे, आपके सेशन करा देंगे एक और. Okay, now go back और अपने answers में दोबारा मत लिखो, but do write the pointers down. Conclusion में use करना है या कोई schematic डालना है. Okay, maybe one dimension, okay, around whatever, radical geography, one dimension around the collapse or the tragedy of commons. Visit your answers again and see what you can do. ठीक है? So there is one more practice paper. वो आपका 7 बजे अपलोड हो जाएगा. Okay, आप उसको भी अपने आप करो. We don't have a class anymore today. आप करो and I'll discuss with you. And maybe I'll discuss some points tomorrow morning. अगर if it's possible, I'll try to do that. हाँ प्रज्ञा, उसके भी आंसर्स हैं, हम बताते हैं आपको. लेट्स सी. आज का जो प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चंस मिलेगा आपको 7 बजे, आप उसको भी कर लो. ठीक है? Okay. Acha, by the way, all of you be alert. At around 9 o'clock, okay, I might have a 45 minutes of a small session on essays writing. Again on YouTube. Okay? I'll confirm it for you. But be alert, I'll share it. Tomorrow 7 a.m. writing